Seconds Out, delighted to be joined by Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren, and fair to say making moves, making news last night. Put out an open letter to Matchroom Boxing with a list of potential fights you guys could work together on. A lot of them mouth-watering prospects for boxing fans out there. The thing I wanted to ask you first of all is why now? Why is now the right time to do this?
Well, I think the circumstance that we're in this country, you know, with the lockdown and with the position we've got with live gates and so forth, I've been thinking about it, and I think that, you know, this is the time to give the fans some great fights. And I think, you know, Eddie Hearn said a couple of weeks ago that, you know, the fighters now got to understand that the big fights have got to be made, and I entirely agree with him entirely. And I think, therefore, let's make the fights that the fans would want to see between our respective group of fighters that we represent. I spoke to BT about it. They were very much on board. We dropped a line yesterday to Adam Smith at Sky, and I think we're going to do it today and see if we can get this going.
One thing some critics might say is that this looks like a publicity stunt purely because it's gone as an open letter to the media rather than behind closed doors discussions with yourself and Matchroom. Why did you decide to go public?
Because we wanted to get out there that this is what we'd like to. So we've done that peeing contest. This is about, they've got their group of fighters. We've got, let's make these happen. And there is no reason why it shouldn't happen. Why shouldn't they happen? It's the fights that the fans want to see to start with, and the fights I want to see. You know, everybody's going to have an opinion on them. There's some 50-50 fights there. There's fights that their guys will win. There's some fights that win. And we genuinely feel that this is for the benefit at the end of the day of boxing and for the fans.
But what was the reason behind going the media route rather than just going directly to them and then announcing something later on? Is it to put a little bit more pressure on them to come to the table?
I suppose in some ways we're probably we're laying the gauntlet, aren't we? We're confident in what we're doing. We're confident where we are. Come on, get this on. You know, bring out that they want to see and what they're going to do and so forth. Well, look, you know, this is all about for the betterment of the sport. This is about into the fans, our egos, our personal interest aside. You know, we've got BT on board to do it. I'm sure Sky will want to deliver the best they can for their subscribers too. So between us, we have the capability of delivering some mega fights. Each is a stand-up fight in its own right, but some mega events together that the fans will relish and I'm sure appreciate.
And is the idea to put these fights together after the lockdown restrictions are further eased? Because a lot of them are big fights.
No,
that presumably...
I'd like to start moving in September with these fights. You know, we're in all. Let's start looking at some data, get them going. Start doing. Could be like a couple of pay-per-views. It could be 2 or 3 or 4 pay-per-views. It could be just standalone fights. Whatever it takes to make them happen. I mean, when was it? Might have been a month or so ago. There was an offer made by Matchroom to Chris Jenkins, but what I didn't like about it is that they made the offer direct to the fighter instead of coming through us. We had the contract, so that didn't happen. All that didn't happen for a certain reason. We can make happen between us.
And you mentioned in the statement about an equitable distribution of fights between the two broadcasters. Is there any scope for co-promotions and sharing broadcasts on both channels?
Won't be an issue with me. I just think whatever it takes, there's going to be a lot of give and take. Everybody's got to park up self-interest and deliver for the fans. That's what it's all about. Sorry about that noise. There's a helicopter going over. The banner on the end of it. Make these fights happen.
Yeah. Well, as long as that's all it says, I think you'll be all right. There's been a bit of a problem with banners in the last few months.
Tell me about it.
Have you had any response at all? Yeah, I know it was only last night, but have you had any response at all from Matchroom?
No, we haven't. And and I hope we do get one. And I hope they got my number. Ring me direct and make it happen.
And it's been documented before that you don't have a personal relationship with Eddie Hearn, who's the head of Matchroom. if what it took to make these fights happen was for you and him to get in a room together at a table, just the two of you, would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely, I would. I haven't got a problem, as I say, with that. I'd make it happen. But we never had a personal relationship when we made Billy Joe Saunders against Ryder. We never had a personal relationship when Warrington fought Selby. We didn't have a personal relationship when about 4 or 5 of our fighters have fought on their shows. It's not a problem with me.
Great stuff. When I looked at the list of fights, they're all really intriguing prospects, but there's a couple on there that I think some people would suggest benefit your guys more than his. Specifically, Dillian Whyte against Daniel Dubois and Ted Cheeseman against Hamza Shiraz. Seems like they're the more established names at this point, and your guys are the prospects with everything to gain. Is that fair?
I don't think so. I think Daniel Dubois is a bigger name in this country as Dillian Whyte is. And I think Joe Joyce, he won a silver medal in the Olympic Games. You know, is Derek Chisora a bigger name than him? I mean, Derek's lost quite a few fights, you know, when he steps up to the plate. So I don't agree. And as regarding Dillian Whyte, I mean, I see that some guy on the Daily Mirror who gets a lot of these information, his name Domin or whatever it is, gets his information incorrect. He said that's what you're saying, but I don't agree with that. You know, Dillian Whyte is not going to fight Tyson Fury in his next fight. Tyson Fury is going to fight Wilder. And if you ask the fans, because this is what it's all about at the end of the day, the fans, if you say to the fans, what fight do you want to see? Do you want to see Tyson Fury fight Anthony Joshua, or do you want to see Tyson Fury fight Dillian Whyte? What is the answer to that? 100%, you know, 100% is going to see the two champs get it on. That's the fight. I want to see that fight before I see either of them fight Povetkin and fight Dillian Whyte. That's what I want to see, but they're contracted to do that. So in the meantime, as that's everybody would like to switch about what fans want to see. So let Dillian Whyte take my guy on, and according to what some people think Dillian Whyte big favourite, make that fight happen, and the winner of that gets the winner of Tyson. And they're big fights. They're not crap fights. They're fighter. You to watch Dillian Whyte fight Daniel Dubois, and you think of another fight, big fight outside of AJ and Tyson. You think of a bigger fight in British boxing, heavyweight fight.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think most people would probably prefer to see Dillian Whyte against Dubois than Dillian Whyte against Povetkin, which is going on in a couple of weeks' time.
Oh, nice. So it's and I'd rather see, you know, Dubois in with Dillian Whyte than Whyte. So I'm telling you how it is. So let's try and make this stuff happen.
But what about one like Hamza Shiraz against Ted Cheeseman? Surely that is one where you look at Cheeseman and say, what's he got to gain from that fight?
Well, what did he have? You know, what would he gain from it? He'd make a lot of money from it. It's a good fight. It's a quality fight. It'd be the biggest purse of his career.
Bigger than against Eggington, for example, last week?
Oh, without a doubt. Much bigger fight. Don't you not think so? Listen, Hamza Shiraz, the new kid on the block. He's 11-0. You know, Ted was what, 16-2. He's 16-2-1. And what was Eggington? I mean, he got beat a couple of years ago by Bradley Skeet and various other guys. It's nonsense. That's a good fight. You're going to start picking all the matches apart, then they won't happen. That's part of the deal, isn't it? You know, you can look at some of those fights and think, why would I put my guy in with these guys? I mean, you said one earlier on, why would I put Daniel Dubois in with Dillian Whyte? You know, look at the experience he's got compared with the experience Daniel Dubois got. Just make them. Let's not park all these obstacles up. Make these fights. It's not the end of the world for a loser. Ted Cheeseman has proved emphatically having a loss, or in his case, 2 losses and a draw on his record, is not the end of your career.
What are the next steps from your point of view? You've put the letter out into the domain. It's got a lot of publicity, a lot of people behind it, really like the concept. Is it now just a waiting game for Sky and Matchroom to come back?
Well, if it's a game at all, I think it's you know, it's just a matter of now making it work. And you know, we've reached out to Sky, and I'm quite sure that there'll be some dialogue going on with Matchroom fairly soon.
And would it need to be, and you've said this before with the Fury-Joshua fight, would it take everyone coming together around a table? Obviously, in this case, without Top Rank's involvement, because they have no involvement in this, but would it take you, BT, Sky and Matchroom all coming together for a meeting to push things forward?
What, on these fights that we put forward? Yeah, they're out there, of course now. They're guys that we're involved with. And obviously their respective managers.
And did you, before you put the thing out, did you speak to your fighters who are on the list and say, these are the fights I'm proposing for you, what do you think? Or is there anyone else you'd rather fight on their stable, that kind of thing?
No, and some of them, I'm not even had a conversation with them. But some of our guys, I think our fighters will fancy the fights, but if they don't, they don't.
Have you had any fighters disappointed that they weren't on the list? Because obviously there's only so much room on the poster.
Absolutely. I mean, Sonny Edwards would love to go on there, on there, but we're looking at another fight at the moment for him. I'm looking, I was talking only a couple of days ago with someone about a world title fight for him, and I hope we're going to be fairly down the road with it. So, I don't want him to think that he's been left off this. And there's quite a few other fighters, but where are you going to start? We can't put a list out of 20-odd fighters. Yeah. You've got to start somewhere. So we started somewhere, and this is where we're at. And I'm sure there's, let's see if we can get past this hurdle first. And if we can, then obviously there'll be other fights. But in the meantime, that's not going to stop me trying to make matches for our other guys. And Sonny's top of the list. Liam Williams even yesterday. We'd love to, that the Andrade fight is out at the moment. It's going to be put out for purse bids. But if we could make the fight with, as he was talking about yesterday, I'm not going to say what he referred to him as, but Junior, Eubanks Jr., then we'd make that. We want to make the fights that the fans want to see. We really want to make them.
And you'd be up for doing like a joint card with Matchroom, having several of these fights on one show?
I don't care what it takes. I really don't care what it takes. I just feel that there's a time here to do some things. He said, I think Eddie Hearn said, was it a little while ago, that fighters have got to understand now there's no easy jobs. They've got to step up to the plate, and I agree with him on that. So here we can. Let's all step up to the plate. Let's sit down, behave like adults, park all the egos up, and let's make this happen.
I think a lot of people find this really refreshing that, there has been antagonism in the past between the two camps. Not necessarily you personally, but it has existed before.
Well, I'm going to hold my hands up. I'm as guilty as some. Some fights haven't happened, maybe down to me. I'll admit to that. So let's draw a line under all of this. Whether a fight's not happened because of Matchroom or because of me or because of Sky or BT. Let's look at today, a clean sheet of paper, and now let's make it happen. That's what it's all about. Don't care about you said this, I said that months ago. Let's talk about today and the future. And that's what this is all about. Let's make these fights happen. And other fights. If there's anything else on there that we can look at and make.
And do you expect Matchroom to be receptive? I know you're going to wait and see, but what do you actually expect their response to be?
Look, I'm an optimist. That's why I'm a promoter. So I'm very optimistic.
You have to be, I suppose. Yeah.
So I believe that I think this thing has legs.
And out of all the fights on that list, if you could only make 2 or 3, and I know you want to make all of them, but if you could only make 2 or 3, what would they be?
I like to see them all. I mean, I think every fight in there is a great fight. I think they're really good quality fights, all of them. You're in the fight business, Dan. You've been, you work for Boxing News. You made your living going around watching fights. Every one of these fights is a good main event in its own. And you start pairing them up, maybe doing some pay-per-views. You might make, 2 shows out of it, 5 shows out of it, whatever. It's huge, and you can turn this into a huge, huge thing. And the benefit of this will be the fans and British boxing. We're blessed with a lot of talent in this country, and there's always the arguments that have gone on since I've been involved in boxing. If this fella had fought this one, who would have won? It never happened. Well, these fights used to happen years ago. I mean, I grew up when I was a kid, I watched, all the heavyweights fight each other back in the days. Like you watched Prescott, with Cooper, Bugners, all those guys, Brian Londers, they all fought each other. We can make this happen now. And you look at the Yanks, you go over, you look at the great era of Leonard, Hearns, Haglers, Caprino, Cuevas, all those guys. They all fought each other. Durans, they all fought each other. Let's do it here. We're a powerful boxing nation. We control the heavyweight division. We've got some of the best young fighters in the world. So between us, let's get on with it and make it happen. And you know what? Some of these fights The winners will be for the benefit of Queensberry. Some may be, I think all my guys are going to win, but some may be to the benefit of Matchroom. But whatever happens, all it's going to do is enhance the winners' potential earning power and future. So let's make them happen.
When you say in the statement an equitable distribution of fights between the two broadcasters, I'm assuming it doesn't mean an exact equal amount of fights. It's not, you have 5, we have 5. Because there has to be some sort of value placed against the different fights as attractions, right?
Oh, you can, but all right, so if you want to do it, I mean, as I said, I think they're all great fights, but you could look at it and say, right, on this list, there's 4 A fights, there's 6 B fights, work it out. So you have 2 A fights, we'll have 2 A fights, or make them joint promotions. I don't care. There's money to be made here for the fighters, which means that we'll make money out of it. And there's fights here that the fans will pay for because they're great domestic bust-ups. And there's a little bit of a spice in it that it's Queensberry against Matchroom. So, it's all good fun.
Just before we let you go, we asked for questions this morning on Twitter, although we've already covered most of them anyway. But someone was asking, what did you make of Fight Camp and the debut show that they had the day after your show?
I think they've done really well. We started off with our free shows, and we made a conscious decision how we do it, because obviously we were the first in doing the shows, and how it was going to work as far as the safety angles and aspects concerned, and that was what our priority was. And we said, the type of shows we'll be delivering to start with. We've done that. We now want to move to the next level. Their show was excellent on Saturday night, and I thought that the main event, it shows what you can do with main. I mean, the 2 guys there would probably, if it wasn't for lockdown, would not have featured as a main event anywhere. That would have been on an undercard show, but it shows you what can happen in lockdown. So now let's take it to the next level, and with fighters, I don't mean this being disrespectful, like with higher profile and bigger name fighters between us. Let's make it happen.
Well, we look forward to seeing how this develops. We hope it comes to fruition, at least for some of the fights. And you'll have to keep us informed.
We certainly will. But what I'd like to do now, we've put it out there, and as you say, we've done it through the media, and I'm no doubt there'll be some response from the media. I have no problem just sitting down at a table behind closed doors and trying to make this happen.
Great stuff. All right. Well, if I speak to the other side, of course, I'll put it to them as well. So fingers crossed, we can work something out.
I'll leave that to you, Dan.
Yeah. Cheers. Take care,
mate.
Frank.
Be good.
Always a pleasure. See you later.
Bye.